So we all played this game. I made you guys play this. I ranted and raved that you guys have to play this. Please play this. So we're going to do full spoiler discussion. Full warning right now. Spoiling everything to do with the Beginner's Guide, the new game from Davey Whedon, who did the Stanley Parable.
Yeah. So before you leave, this is a $10 game. It's about 90 minutes long. I'm probably never going to play it again. But I think just in terms of something that's very interesting and unique, I think it was worth it.
Yeah.
So if you have not played it, buy.
That's the Marty review.
Yep. Yeah. No, I meant buy as in goodbye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the Marty review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, to clarify, I think this is more of a interactive essay than a game.
Yes, and that was exactly the feeling I had walking away from it.
Right. It's like, I have a definition of a game which includes a game is basically a challenge. It throws down like, hey, I bet you can't do this, and here are the rules for doing it. This game barely does that. It
bet you can't get through this without feeling suicidal tendencies.
Yeah, I mean it has very basic puzzles.
Yeah, I mean
super basic puzzles, and it makes a point of saying these puzzles are super basic.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it satisfies my definition of what is a game. The letter of the law, but not the spirit.
Yeah, I feel like on the grand scheme of quote unquote walking simulators, it has less player agency and interactivity than something like Gone Home, and slightly more than something like Dear Esther.
I mean, it's not only guided; it's narrated.
Yeah,
and there's stuff explained to you before you even get to it. Like he will, as the narrator, call stuff out that you're looking at that then you go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So for the people who are listening to this or watching this that are watching it not having played and don't care that it's being spoiled, we should probably establish what this is.
So Davey, who was one of the developers on the Stanley Parable, which was also another walking simulator, but very strange, sort of fourth wall breaking about video games and about art in general.
And choice.
Mm-hmm. This is him going through a series of small games / tech demos that supposedly a friend of his named Coda made from like 2008 to 2011-ish. Yeah. And so he's going through these things, and it starts off in like it was a Counter-Strike map.
Yep.
And he's sort of walking around, and he's narrating the whole time as you're walking around. So you are allowed to walk around the map, and he started telling you the story of who this guy was.
And it's not even narrated like you would expect. Like, it's very much he's like, hello, my name is Davey, and I made the Stanley Parable, and this is what you're looking at. I'm going to tell you a story.
And here's my email address. If you have some theories or complaints or anything, he gives his email address right at the beginning, which is his real email address.
Yep.
Yeah.
So basically from there, right, like you start there, and he says he's going to take you through a series of games developed by his friend Coda, and you just kind of bounce between them, and they're very short, and they're very abstract, and like Dan said, not really a game because it's made in a game engine and you can walk around and do stuff, but none of it really amounts to anything.
Yeah.
They're basically like experiments and ideas that happen to be playable.
Yeah, and he sort of being at the helm of the thing has the ability, like there's some times where you get to a thing where like the game was unfinished or the game, something sort of broke, and he was like, well, I'm going to get you through this door because this door doesn't open. I'm going to build you a bridge. I am going to pull you out of the world. And you start seeing things like, oh, there's this little shooter that took place in a spaceship, and there was nothing to shoot. You had a gun, you could shoot it, but there was nothing to shoot. But sort of if you zoomed out, like if you clipped out and broke out of the level and zoomed out, you'd notice that there was a ton of other like geometry that was created that just wasn't there. And so you start sort of thinking, well, why was this there?
Yeah, and that's sort of the running theme throughout it is all of these games have things that are hidden away from what would be the player. And that starts asking the question about creativity and people who make the games and the responsibility to the people who are playing them.
And why they make games.
Yeah, and it becomes basically through the series of narrations about Coda's games, those topics. And then in addition to that, kind of Coda's like emotional descent as he makes games.
Well, and the whole thing is, here's the spoiler part.
Yeah.
In the end, it's kind of implied that there is no Coda. It's actually Davey, who's made these levels, and it's not a split personality thing.
But just a part of himself, like a representation of a part of his series of beliefs.
Yeah, or like I kind of read it as like Coda was kind of a manifestation of his depression.
Yes.
As and he was making these as he was working through his depression. And
maybe
as a result of bouts of depression.
Yeah, you definitely start noticing. Like I noticed it before sort of the turn at the end when he gets the final game from the guy, and then when he beats it, the guy gives him the message saying like, "Don't contact me anymore. You broke my trust by taking my games and showing them to other people when I explicitly multiple times told you not to." But before that, you start getting to parts of levels that very much you can tell are prototype things for the Stanley Parable.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that just stand out, and you're like, oh yeah, like obviously this guy played these games and then made the Stanley Parable. No,
I mean, and there's that
no question.
There's an early level where the only thing you could do is walk backwards. You can't walk forwards,
that was one of my favorites.
That was a thing in the Stanley Parable.
Yep.
That's right.
Certain things were all about walking backwards. The way text sort of read on a wall, the way his sort of turns of phrases, the way signage almost acted as like these emotional prompts.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like with the box head.
Yeah.
People. Well, and then more explicitly, like the house cleaning level is the most Stanley Parable thing I've seen, because you're having this conversation with this guy who is, passively having this conversation with you, but mostly just telling you, do this, do this, do this, do this. And you're just doing it because you have to.
Yeah.
And that's how you unlock the next part of the game, but you're not getting anything out of it. You're cleaning a house because you're being told to.
Although he said, like, in the, he fixed that one because initially you just kept...
There was no ending.
Yeah, you just kept fixing, or, cleaning everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that last part where one of the last messages on the wall is stop adding lampposts to my levels.
Yes.
Yeah. So
So I mean and whereas Davey had said early on, it's like, oh yeah, he added this.
He had this recurring motif of at the end of his levels there were lampposts.
Maybe that was his beacon to the player to signify the end.
Right, and that to me is him establishing himself as an unreliable narrator.
Yes.
You can't trust anything he says.
Yep. So that didn't click for me right away. Because,
that clicked for me instantly.
So I got that, and I got to that moment, and I was like, that's when it crossed my mind where I was like, are they the same person? And then more stuff happened, and that thought just kind of took a back seat. And by the end of it, I thought, man, Davey is not a good person. Davey is like incredibly selfish to make this and to ask Coda to like respond to this by releasing games that Coda did not want released.
Yeah, I mean, besides that being, kind of a jerk thing to do, it's also illegal.
Yeah.
So I don't think...
Especially if you're charging for
That's
it.
why I was like, wait, how is he doing this?
Right.
This seems not okay.
So that's kind of a outside the game giveaway.
Sure.
Maybe that's not exactly what happened.
But yeah, like the night... Like I slept on it and woke up the next morning and thought a lot about it, and just like I haven't stopped thinking about this game and the sort of like emotional toll that these things took on this person, and came to the realization like, yes, like Coda is the representation of a different part of Davey's brain.
But at the same time, like the ending is kind of a condemnation of trying to interpret authorial intent,
which I found super interesting because art rarely does that. Like I'm always a firm believer in once you create something and put it out there, it's no longer yours.
Death of the author.
Yes, the death of the author. And whereas this is sort of saying that it can be dangerous and sort of it can be selfish of you to try to take a piece of art and put yourself into it, or sort of
trying to project your own thoughts onto what the person making this game was thinking when they made it.
Right, because that person, like those things are a result of those thoughts and of what that person went through.
But trying to interpret what that person was going through when they made that game is not necessarily going to be successful, because that's how you see things. It's not how they saw it.
Right. Yeah, and it's backseat. It's like backseat pseudopsychology.
Yeah, it's like I was a lit major in college, and I hated it because it was all that. It was all like trying to figure out what was the author thinking when he did this. It's like, well, sometimes a cigar is a cigar. Yeah, it's not all symbolism.
Yeah.
So like playing through a game and trying to interpret what a developer is thinking is probably going to be wrong.
Yeah. I it's almost weird to start, because I was literally going to say, well, what I think the game.
Good thought, Dan. What I think. I disagree. I think it.
That's fine. I can.
No. I'm not even saying I disagree.
But the idea of you saying that thought combined with Marty following it up with, I'm going to have a different interpretation. It's just really funny.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Just playing it reminded me of a lot of, I guess, less me thinking about what was going on in Davey's head and more me using it like as a mirror to think about stuff in my own past of like how many text documents and final draft
projects.
and abandoned projects I have.
Yeah,
how
like
many
chapter
things,
ones you have.
Yes, how many chapter ones I have, how many first acts I have,
Yeah.
how many features in notebooks I have that I want to do for work or for personal stuff. And that's sort of interesting. And being able to like look at those as like these items of the past, of being able to like recount like specific moments and how you felt back then by looking at these very specific
There's
things.
also something really interesting about the idea of looking at your past body of work and then analyzing it as a separate person, like looking at it from an outsider's perspective critically like that. Like,
This guy can't even spell.
yeah. That's a really interesting idea, like looking at themes in your old work, right? And like looking at them together and seeing in sequence how you got from one point to another, or these recurring ideas you have and themes and whatever like visual motifs you had, like the 3 dots and the lampposts and all these things that Daveys talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, you know the other thing that was the giveaway that all was not as it seemed in Daveys' story. How did he know that Coda stopped making stuff? Because Coda, according to his story,
Left.
Well,
he's like went off the grid.
Yeah, he left, and he wasn't releasing stuff to begin with.
Yeah.
So how did he know he stopped creating instead of just stopped showing Davey?
Yeah.
Like that. So that, there's some logical inconsistencies.
Yeah.
But anyway.
There were some serious moments in this game where I had to like stop and just breathe for a minute. Where I'm like, that was like an emotional sucker punch.
Yeah, like I was very quickly assuming that these were going to lead to a suicide.
I did too.
That these
I thought the whole thing was a suicide note.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing with Gone Home, where they
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and despite the fact that like before I played it, like Steve Gaynor was like, "There's no
violence,
no one's
no
gonna
death,
die. There's no monsters."
no ghosts.
And the whole time I'm like, "He's a liar." He lied right to the face.
There's a ghost right around that corner.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you guys: do you think that the beginner's guide benefits from being a game with a player-controlled camera, as opposed to having a director-controlled camera?
Right, like being a film.
I mean, I think you can, I hate saying it because you should buy art that you enjoy, but I think you could watch a no commentary Let's Play of this game and get the exact same sort of benefit of it. Like, aside from you wouldn't be able to read all of the nodes in the one fake online game where there were fake messages everywhere. Like,
This is my favorite one, by the way.
that was pretty good.
I must have read 300 of those.
You're just like, why are these all here?
There were some that were just
Fake Dark Souls.
seriously
fake Dark Souls.
depressing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a thing. Yeah, it's kind of crappy to be like, why is this a game and not something else? And it's like, well, it's because
that's what that dude made.
Or why is it a interactive thing and not?
The question is, do you think it's better as an interactive thing than it would be as a movie, non-interactive thing?
I mean, if only because it is about an interactive medium. It's a game about games.
It's a game about people experiencing something you have made for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think maybe it's best as an interactive thing because it is primarily about interactive.
Yeah, I mean, you could
things.
understand the idea of when you go up the stairs, slow down and stop. You can understand that by watching it, but I don't know. He's saying something very specific about the responsibility to a player.
For me, the one thing that I really got out of it that I don't think I would have gotten out of watching it is the way the narration kicks in at kind of a very prescient moments.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think he learned a lot about how to do that from the Stanley Parable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just like he very successfully kind of gets into your head and understands like what you're going to be thinking when you're at a very specific point.
Well, there's like that moment where you do that sequence of puzzles where he's like, remember this, and you touch the table and you tilt the picture, and then he throws you back in, and you have that moment of like, where's the table? And he says, yeah, and he took out the table.
Yeah.
Like, that's that fake out moment that Davey is very good at.
Yeah,
and that's something very important for a designer to be able to do is to
know what the player to anticipate.
Right, because when you're a game designer, you're looking at things entirely different from what a player is looking at them from. So, and that to me is why game designers use the phrase "the player" a lot, because that is not them.
Yeah,
like,
it's like a businessman saying the customer.
Right. So I always avoid talking about what in this game the player does that.
Yeah.
Like, no, I do that.
Right.
I did that.
We do that.
Yeah.
We are players.
Yeah.
We
are.
Yeah. but for a game designer, they're trying to get into our heads. We're running through their maze and they're trying to anticipate what we're going to do at a given time and throw something unexpected at us. they're imagining what we're expecting and doing something different.
Yeah.
Or surprising.
Yeah.
So that's a really cool skill that he has.
Yes, absolutely. And this is, to be clear, this is his solo project. It was not
his
Hello
team.
Cakebread, who I believe was
Correct.
the team that made Stanley Parable. He said they are working on other things. This
Cool.
was like sort of his solo project.
Oh.
I think it was neat. I'm glad I played it.
Me too. Why is it called the Beginner's Guide?
I don't know.
Beginner's Guide to Game Design, I think, or just
It was like him as an example, like
Yeah.
interpret what you will from my lessons learned,
yeah,
sort of thing.
I feel if someone's played this and wants more that is like this, sort of about game design in theory, but much deeper mechanically, the Magic Circle, which came out earlier this year.
I need to play that.
Yeah, Jordan Thomas's
Yep.
game, which is it's sort of a first-person shooter puzzle game where you are in a piece of what's it called when the game never comes out?
Development hell.
Yeah, but something vaporware.
There it is.
That was the word. Development
something
hell
where.
too, but it's really interesting because you're going through this game and you have the ability to retool rules in the world, so you can make enemies not like
hack and slash.
Like hack and slash. You can make an enemy completely passive. You can make you can add speed to something. You can add weight to something.
Wow.
But you're going through layers of the game, and it's this fake first-person shooter that they were making. And you go in an area, and it was like being developed over the course of a decade. And so you go into an area that looks like a game from 1995,
That's
as opposed to
awesome.
a game from 2002. Really interesting stuff. Both of those games, this and Magic Circle and Beginner's Guide, are sort of interesting. They have cool things to say about video
Stanley
games.
Parable too.
When you get into and I know this is a debate everyone hates, but whether or not this is a game.
Damn it, Dan.
The reason that I agree it's kind of an annoying semantic argument.
Yeah.
But I think that it is kind of important in that it manages expectations. When you tell somebody, hey, go play this game, The Beginner's Guide, and they go in expecting a game, that's not what they're going to get. So I don't like to tell people that this is a game because they're going to go in expecting.
Go experience this.
Yeah, I mean, it's
whatever
like,
it is.
I'm very careful about who I recommended this to. Like, I came in this morning and recommended it to Justin Davis because I was like, you play dumb things like this, you're gonna like it.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I'm not gonna go over to like, I don't know, I'm not gonna have Destin play.
Hey,
Destin
Vince, who
wants
loves systems, you should play.
Oh my god, yeah,
The
Vince.
Beginner's Guide.